My name is Yamile Baena. I'm a bilingual best-selling author in Mexico and also a screenwriter, and I have written a couple of things. I am MDB credits, like a movie, and several vertical series that is like the short drama that we're going to talk about here. And I've been writing all my life. I was a miracle child because I earned my first literary award at 3. This prize was get me my book published, and it became a best-selling book when I was a kid. And since then, I've been writing. So I've been storytelling almost for 5 decades now. And I've been jumping into different formats. And at the end, I ended with this format that for me is amazing. It's an amazing, it's the new way to tell stories. And we have to, all the opportunities and chances that gives to producers, screenwriters, even independent filmmakers. It's amazing. So I love to do this.
How do you get into the short drama industry?
When I decided to be a screenwriter, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And I managed to have a couple of screenwriting gigs, but I realized I wanted to make a living from this. And it was kind of hard because I got to sold my first script and they make the movie, but the income was not fluid. And I started writing some gigs here and there. And I saw, I don't remember where, I believe in Facebook, someone looking for a screenwriter for verticals series. And back then, this was like 2021, 2022, I believe. And this was not something that here in America we listen a lot. It was huge already in China, but in America there was not much. So I started to do it, and I said, "Wow, this is much more easier for me." And maybe it was easier for me because I come from writing short stories. And I love to, when Twitter was used by 140 characters, I love to do little haikus kind of often. So I like to be brief. That's the way I create. So it makes sense for me. And it was very easy. It was very quick, and I got good money at the moment. These guys just said, I like your job, the job you did. So they asked me for more. I said, okay. And back then, people didn't understand the vertical. In America, back then, they believe it was like, oh, it's like social media, It's like, it's a TikTok thing, It's like, if you're a professional, why are you kidding around with this format? And I said, I want to make a living. This is making money for me. I really enjoy it. It was kind of hard sometimes because some of the stories were, honestly, the first one was a little bit too out of reality because it was a kind of, like exaggerated. But I saw it just started to have like an evolution in the story. And if you see the first verticals that I've written and that were produced, and you see the last ones I saw with this Ukrainian company, it's a huge difference. But back then, my screenwriters colleagues of America told me, why are you demeaning yourself writing this kind of stuff? You could be writing features. Why are you losing your time on this? That's for amateurs. That's for kids. They were obviously mistaken. And so I kept doing it. I have a couple of awful experience with a huge Chinese company that never paid my work. It was the worst nightmare as a screenwriter, that you have to adapt a 900-page book, and when you finally done, they said, I didn't like it, and they used it, but they didn't pay, and you cannot do anything about it. So I was so hurt. I said, that's it. I'm not going to work verticals anymore. And I accepted the job with an Indian company that they were doing something similar, but this was audio thing, Pocket FM, that it was more written in Spanish. And what happened then was that the founder of Holy Water, that is my drama platform now, reached out for me because I posted in LinkedIn one of my verticals, and he was exploring that, and he said, I have a story and you're good, why don't you do it? And I said, no, forget it, I never will do that again. Why not? And I told him my story. So he said, well, we're not, everyone is not the same, give me a chance, what's your price? So I asked for a good price for me, but I never thought he was going to say. And he said, yeah. I ended up being the first screenwriter for both of them. So it was very cool. And then, well, I kept working for the Indian people, and I was a senior screenwriter there. And when that project ended, I reached out to Bob and I said, I'm free again if you need a freelance or whatever. And I started working for them. First, I worked there for a year, and it was amazing because it was like another. What they do is that they put a little bit more of quality. The other verticals I used to write, there were low budgets produced, and they didn't care much about the the logic in some scenes, in some characters, or yeah, it was like they were more based in what pad stories were written by amateurs and writers, not like the book I adapted. And with my drama was different. My drama had a huge young team that had a very strong marketing vision, and they wanted to do things different. So I learned a lot about the pace, about the structure, about the cliffhangers, and somehow your brain clicks and you learn how to tell the stories, a new way to tell a story, and I really like it. So I started exploring that, and then when my project with them ended, I believe I have 6 or 8 I don't remember verticals with them. The last I wrote for them, I believe I saw it is the Queen, but I don't think they used my last version of script. They changed a lot of things, but it was more or less the Queen of Hearts was my last vertical with them. Then I started creating my own stories, but in the vertical format and pitching them to producers. And right now I'm working 2 of them for a Mexican company, and of a huge Mexican company, and another producer in the States said I presented an idea and I developed the script, and he said this is excellent. But I believe these guys are starting to explore other things, because in verticals, all people work. What they do is, you have these tropes. For example, in the States, the CEO thing, the billionaire CEO, and you have these tropes, and people, and the market of China moves around these tropes. And I saw that, for example, my drama at first were moving around these tropes, and they dare to explore another. It's like, okay, what if we explore comedy? But comedy is not that huge in it's like melodrama is the thing. Melodrama is the thing that moves more the microdrama or the short dramas. But I believe the universe is expanding. So what I really like is that right now people are recognizing this as a format, as a media, more than you have these tropes where you have the characters very defined. This girl is the girl that the Cinderella, that she was poor, and or she has the girl that's bullied and then she gets the revenge. In the Chinese vertical story, you would find a lot of stereotypes. The bully, the mean girl, the rich guy, this sexual tension between this almost non-consent sexual tension, um, almost violence. And I believe that new stories are starting to breathe on their own. because well, if you write a good thriller, for example, thriller is not something you see in this kind of stories, or horror or comedy. Yeah, comedy, but it haven't been popular, and it's very hard because you have to keep the tension. You have to keep people. This I need to know, and that is very easy to do with the drama, but it's not that easy to do with horror because you have to scare people and keep them intrigued. But thriller is better. You can do it, no? So I've been exploring other genres, and it has been fun. It's not expensive to produce this series in comparison of other things. So people are hopping up, and the return of investment is higher than any other kind of media or content you can create. It's a very interesting thing that's happening here. So they are willing to experiment a little bit more, and if they fail, it's not that bad. And I don't know if that's the idea we have, and it's not completely true, because I have this talking with one high executive of a Chinese company, and she said, we produce 100 series, and I don't know, every 3 days. And we only need one hit, for example. No? They are willing to risk because with only one, they can have the whole thing. And that's funny because that's the way a book company works. Book publishing house, they only need a hit, and that sustains the other 1,000 books they are producing. And it's funny that it works that way. But well, I believe it's a whole new world with so much possibilities. As a screenwriter, I can tell you, making a living from this, as if you only have as an option movies and series, TV shows, it's very hard to make a living from that. You have to have another job. But if you focus on verticals, you can make a living because the pace of this is very fast. And that's very interesting.
What's the definition of short drama?
A short drama it has to be in a format, best 1 minute format, episodic. And it's like series. You're telling a story maybe in 30 minutes, maybe in an hour. But the pace of the storytelling has to be very brief, little moments. So you need 1 minute episode or 2 minute episode, more the most. So you have to. That's why it's a short drama, because you need to tell the story in 1 minute, and you only have 1 minute to hook the audience, and you only have 1 minute to present the action and to present the characters and make the audience love the characters, make them want to watch more. So for me, a short drama is the art of a short format, a short telling. It's like short stories. When the dinosaur wake up, you need to tell the story as brief as you can. So for me, is to learn to tell a whole story in a way so that's compelling and thrilling enough to being able to do little pieces an hour. It's the same, but it's not a 60-minute movie, of course, because you have to binge what it has to be. You have to binge the whole. So that's my definition of short drama.
What is the essence of short drama?
I believe that the essence is you need to evoke emotions in your audience the fastest you can.
And you mentioned about you were writing original stories. And how do you choose your topics? Where to find your inspiration?
I find my inspiration from everything I see, from all the people I know, of all the things I read, all the things I watch. The reason I started to be a screenwriter was because I watched a thriller series in Netflix while we were at the pandemic, and I hated it, and I said I could do it better, and that's why I realized and I wrote my first thriller series. So I believe I'm inspired of everything, but also as I understand the pace and I know how to recognize there are certain stories that doesn't work for verticals because you need to have enough things going on in 1 minute. And that's the reason why comedy is so hard it's not that easy to make this space, because in comedy you need different rhythm sometimes, and in verticals you need at least twist, you need emotions, you need to go like a wave every episode. So I believe I've been inspired of everything, as everybody. You can be inspired by talking with your friend, and your friend tells you a story, or you can be inspired. I've been, for example, I have a great example. I have this TikTok thing I love that is in reality it's a radio show, and this is only an example, but they do this gig that they make the second date update. And the thing is, like a person that went into a date and thinks it's marvelous, and then the guy or the girl never calls them back, and they are so into them that they call this radio station and they make this guy call them and figure out what went wrong. And the stories are some very funny. So from that kind of thing of real stories, real geeks, that's the seed of something going on. Because there's a girl that almost got married, and it turns out she didn't get married, and so she went and find out where she was stood at the altar, and for 2 years she looked for this guy, and this is a true story, and she looked for this guy, and when she finally found where he is, to make him say the truth about why he didn't marry her. And it turns out the dad of her gave, I don't know, $100,000 for him not to marry her. And that's a true story. So it's very funny. You find this kind of seeds in, so you as a writer, you need to be, you don't know where your next idea can come from. And there are some good ideas, and there are ideas that they didn't mean to say, but you need to learn to recognize them. The other day I saw in a writers group, they say, it never happened to you in the middle of a script that you realize this is not the story you want to tell, or this is not the story, yeah, that happens. And you have to recognize that.
Let's pause for a second. Imagine you are in a crowded marketplace. Vendors selling cakes, jewelries, all kinds of things. And you are one of vendors trying to sell a story. What kind of story will you tell? And more importantly, how do you keep people stop listening and actually pay? That's the narrative logic of short drama. I explain this in my book, Short Drama Writing 101. Write what platforms want. It's available on Payhip, Amazon, and Google Playbooks. Now let's back to the video.
Oh, you wrote stories about vampires and werewolves, right? So how do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
Well, that's another, those tropes, very, very safe to explore. Those were stories that this is a story, we need you to adapt them and make them vertical. So it was not that hard because it was almost a story. But the hard one was one that it was werewolves and vampires and witches, and they made a mix up. It was a 900-page book. I told you about this one I made. And it's a challenging thing because even though you're talking about werewolves and and it's a teenage thing, and it's a topic everybody knows, a trope everybody knows since Twilight, but still, you need to make, for example, werewolves are very territorial. The alpha, and they have this, it's very important, and they have these rules, and they imprint, I don't know, they are 18, and the inner wolf wakes up, and they have their mates, and it's the mate, and no one. So it's very easy because it's like a soap opera, It's like, oh no, you're meant to be, but you felt imprint with someone of the other clan. And this kind of drama is very easy to do because you already have it. It's not that hard. But is the same. Let's admit it. What I try to do with this Wattpad story, I would mention it because what do I care? They never paid me. But this story was something like it messed up with vampires, werewolves, and with witches. And it's a very famous, but this company, what they used to do is that they pay for the number of words they publish. So it's crap, I'm sorry to say, but if they are paying, you have to have 20,000 words daily. And then what they do is they write the first chapter and they write the second chapter, copying the first chapter just in the point of view of another character. So it's very hard because they are amateurs authors and they don't plan the whole story at the beginning. They just have a fun way to like I don't know, Stephanie Meyer, that she had a very sassy way of telling stories. And maybe the content wasn't so deep, but as she had this sassy way of telling stories, it was hooking. So that happened with this kind of writers. But at the end, if you translate that, imagine translate 900 pages to 161-minute episodes without, and these 900 pages were done without a planning. So it doesn't have a plot. It doesn't have coherence. Sometimes just a character appears and then that character disappears and never happened again. So it was a challenging thing to do, but it can be done. I believe that every story can be fixed. It doesn't matter how bad is it, but I don't believe every story is worth fixing, and it's very hard. I always said, when people came to me and said, why don't you fix this script? You don't have to write it. The only thing is you have to make little twists. I always said, if I charge 10 for writing the script, I have to charge 50 to fix it. Another script, because it's harder. You have to try to arrange a building that the basement is bad, rotten. You have to almost rebuild everything, throw everything away. And that the same thing happened when you write a script. I believe all this teen, young adult literature, that it makes sense because that's the origin from verticals, from Wattpads, and it just that the format just moved toward vertical. So it makes sense that a lot of werewolf things are there and a lot of vampire things. And it started changing to this power dynamics of the CEO, billionaire and the poor girl, and this kind of structures of economical social despair and hidden identity. And this kind of tropes emerged from the origin of the main verticals. So it makes sense. I'm really happy because I'm seeing things changing in the same format. And I believe that they can write a great thriller if the producers risk, and as everything is evolving, they will be able to risk, because as AI is lowering the cost of certain things, they will be able to produce for less money and they will risk more. And I'm happy to see that there are producers risking new stories and they are trying to higher the level of quality of the stories and that's a challenge. I believe not everybody knows how to write a vertical. That doesn't mean that a screenwriter of another format cannot learn the format, but it's a new format. I had to learn to write scripts when I started, because I used to write novels and short stories, and it's not the same because it was by start different language. You wrote with words when you write books, and when you write scripts, you write with actions. It's another language, completely different. You cannot say in a script what they are thinking, but you can do it while you are writing a short story. So my first vertical, the first chapter, I was crying. I was like, oh my God. Is this story that is a werewolf story? This is a girl that she gets 18 years old. The wolf inside of her wakes up. But it turns out on her birthday, that she was going to be the mate of the alpha, but on her birthday, before the wolf awakens, the brother of the alpha came to rape her. And he was about to rape her when the wolf within her awakes and kills the brother. So she has this blood bath inside, and the alpha came into the room with his girlfriend or whatever. And he said, "What have you done? Did you kill my brother?" And the girlfriend said, "How dare you?" And she steps back and slaps her. And I was watching that and I was saying, I swear to God, I didn't put the slap there. They put the slap. It worked. And but for me, in my standards, nobody slaps. You enter a room and you find a killer bathed in the blood of your brother, and the last thing you think is, "Oh, how dare you!" Pa, and slap them.
How do you improve your script each time?
What I learned first is that you need to translate what the producer wants in the best way possible to make the best story. But then you have to just let go. For example, in this first story, my last version didn't have the slap. The producer decided to put the slap, and I didn't get involved. When I saw the slap, I couldn't believe it. I had to go to my script and I said, "I know it's not there." They make me doubt because the dialogues were the same, and that happened to me a lot when I was in Hollywood, because there are a lot of people involved from the creation of the story to the execution of sometimes they change things in the moment, because that's the way verticals are done. So what I learned, if you see my work from the very first one I wrote, then the second one is interesting because it was an original idea. I believe I had the luck because the first one was this werewolf thing. And this company they started risking. They risk in an original idea. And I started learning the pace, because you get it, but the experience gives you, I don't know, it's like if you go walking every day. At first, you will walk but when you get the rhythm, you get the rhythm. That's something that happens when you write a lot of verticals.
How do you capture audience attention in 10 or 5 seconds?
Oh, that's very easy. If you start here, you have to go there. So you have to have at least 3 twists, emotional twists in one episode. And you have to end in a gorgeous cliffhanger. The most important thing is the cliffhanger. If you get the story to have emotions driven, it has to be emotional driven all time. Things has to be moving in the audience. And at the end, it has to be a great cliffhanger. That way you would work, you will do whatever. My example is, do you remember this series Lost? Have you ever watched it?
I watched a few of them.
This series, it's an old series that's called Lost in America. It has the best cliffhangers. I remember I watched that series, and the end was very bad because they didn't think that they have to close the stories, but they were opening them. And it was so thrilling, so thrilling. You couldn't wait a week to watch the next. And that's important. You cannot achieve that every time, but you can try.
How to design the cliffhanger?
You have to base in the characters and in the actions. For example, if you have this couple of lovers and the husband is going to come and catch them, I noticed there are some writers that don't realize, and it's stupid because it's so obvious, no? They don't realize they have to make the cliffhanger just when the hand of the husband is, and not when I'm walking through there, or you have to walk through this. I'm calling it the click. When a bomb is about to click, it's clicking. That's the timing. You have to increase the tension and cut it there. I wrote sometimes that we move ourselves as we produce, our brain produce different hormones, and there are an hormone you produce when you're afraid, an hormone when you are anxious, another hormone when you are happy. If you know how to tell a compelling story, you know how to drive your audience through their hormones to get the result you want. And that is used for sales, that is used for advertising, and that is used for TikTok, for social media in general, and that is used for verticals. You need to know what emotion you have to evoke in your audience first. And if you know that, you will know where to cut them. That's the way you have to do it.
How do you design a hook?
In my case, is what would hook me, because I'm not an easy audience. I'm very picky. And when I know that something has to trigger my curiosity, and I believe it's a feeling. You develop the feeling or you have it. It's like something is going to be compelling enough. But I told you a lot of tricks to do it. You need 3 twists at least. You need to produce different emotions, and you need to cut if you were an addict and you want your dose, and suddenly I cut your dose, you will want more. That's the way you do the cliffhangers, So, well, they are the way different companies work. There are certain companies that they say they need fast. It's a fast pace, but they need quality. So you need to, when you send me the script, you have to already tell me which characters how do they look, the locations, and in each scene, in each episode, you have to say how many characters are there and how many locations. And normally, in a normal script, people don't do that. But if you do that, you are having a lot of time saved for the production team. And it makes sense, because if I'm the writer in the beginning of this page, you can say in episode 1, you have the pool, and in episode 5, you have the pool, and in episode 25, you have the pool. And that kind of things save a lot of money and a lot of time. And that normally is not the work of the screenwriter. But if I deliver that from the start.
How do you see the future of short drama?
I believe that's the future. I believe movies will move there, series will move there. It's a no-brainer. It's cheaper, it's evolving faster, everybody's betting for it. And it's an easier, faster way to produce it. Huge players are jumping in. Fox is jumping in. I know Netflix is kind of jumping in. I mean, huge players are jumping in. That's the reason. This is the future.
Quick advice for newcomers.
I would suggest to think in social media formats. Because maybe they are new to the writing, but I'm sure they are not new of watching TikTok, for example. Which kind of stories hook you? Or YouTube, this genius, Mr. Beast. What Mr. Beast says is the main thing you need for a micro drama. You have 3 seconds to people to do click here and whatever. That's the way to do it. That's the way to write it.